Now back to more of the Rick Hamada program on KHVH, where Hawaii's voice is heard.
So good of you to be with us. And hour number 4 of the big show, Richard David Hamada Jr. III, wishing you the warmest of aloha. It is 9:09 a.m. Thank you very much for choosing us. Thanks so very much for being with us. Yeah, your chance for iHeartRadio. This music fest sold out in less than 1 minute. That's amazing. And we have that opportunity for you. Listen, there is no doubt about it. You want to talk about a sport that is top of mind and has been one of the fastest growing, not only in participation, purses, tournaments, exposure, but just downright popularity. There's no doubt that MMA is a huge part of our sports and entertainment landscape. And one of the fellas really driving this is Frank Trigg, who is online with us right now. And, Frank, I want to thank you for being with us. Aloha to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, it's a deal. Hey, by the way, I can't wait to have the conversation about MMA and especially about you, Frank. Would you mind kind of giving us the Frank Trigg 101 to our folks who are dialed in today?
I started fighting, back in 1996 when Zuffa had just taken over the UFC. They had just started bringing it to mainstream at that point. I was in my heyday. Early 2000s was basically my big one. If you go back and look at UFC 45, that was my first fight in the UFC. It was a title fight against Matt Hughes, and then UFC 52, we had another fight against each other. I fought GSP at UFC 54. So we're talking, a long, long time ago because they're coming up on UFC 162 now. So it's been over 100 fights ago that I was over there doing battle in the UFC, and now I'm moved on to commentating and analysis work for several groups throughout the world, mainly in Europe at this point, and educating the world about TRT.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, where do you hail from originally, Frank?
Upstate New York, a small town called Rochester, New York. It's known mainly for its incredible falls. It has the best autumns in the country, and the home of Kodak Company. It's where Eastman Kodak Company started, was in Rochester.
Absolutely. Well, we've been through there for the spring colors, and the autumn colors, rather. It's beautiful part of the country, gorgeous. And tell us a little bit about your association relationship with Hawaii.
Well, I used to compete for Icon and Rumble on the Rock and a lot of the Hawaiian, Hawaiian fight leagues that were active, back in the day. T.J. Thompson, who's still lives in Oahu, is still one of my really close friends and does a lot of work now for Hawaii 5-0 in the stunt game. I battle in Hawaii quite a bit. Growing up in New York, there's two places I've always wanted to visit. One is Australia and one is Hawaii. I haven't yet made it to Australia, and Hawaii I get to about every 3 or 4 months.
I love that.
So for me, it works out. I love it. There's a South Park episode that my brother and I just rewatched. It's where everyone is talking about, I'm a native Hawaiian, and you look at all these guys like, what are you talking about? Obviously, it's a cartoon. And they go over, and they're talking about, the Mahalo card. I got to have the Mahalo card, which these foreigners, essentially these tourists like myself, come over there once every 3 or 4 months, and they think they're natives. It's like, well, no, you don't understand. I know guys like TJ who's lived there coming up on 15 years, and
right.
he still. That's just how it works. You are not born, you're not raised there. No matter how long you live there, you're still not a native. And I'm very, very into the Hawaiian culture, and I've always been fascinated by it and trying to learn more every time that I go over. So for me, getting over there every 3 or 4 months to work, I always take 4 or 5 days to actually go see the real local festivities and stuff, because that's just the way I am, and obviously it's a culture that is being suppressed and not being pushed out as much as it should be. Like, the Hawaiian culture on the mainland, especially over here, we don't know much about it.
Sure.
And it's
understand. Well, definitely you are a kama'aina. There's no doubt about it. And your passion and your affection for the islands is not only duly noted, but so much appreciated. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about TRT in just a few moments and your connection with the Universal Men's Clinic, and I definitely want to delve into that, and we shall. But I'm always fascinated by the beginnings of legendary careers, and with the MMA, Frank, previous and leading up to that, what was a catalyst for your involvement in MMA to begin with?
It was very weird. Like, the game has changed so much now. You're talking to guys that all they ever have done is MMA. That's all they do. They start at 6 years old. with maybe a little jiu-jitsu, maybe a little wrestling, and maybe a little boxing. And then by the time they're 18, they're fighting pro, having fought like 40 or 50 amateur fights in mixed martial arts, had a couple more in wrestling and jiu-jitsu tournaments and Muay Thai. My start in 16 years ago was completely different. We were wrestlers. I was a wrestler. Wrestled in high school, wrestled at the University of Oklahoma. I was on the U.S. team for 5 years after I finished my tenure at the University of Oklahoma. And I started fighting in mixed martial arts to pay for, because I have a huge affection for judo. I had my second-degree black belt in judo and was trying to make the world team in judo at the same time while trying to make the world team in wrestling. And, amateur sports, you don't make any money.
Right.
So I was fighting in mixed martial arts so I could continue to compete in a lot of these other sports. So these guys now that are fighting 3 and 4 times a year, 2 to 3 times a year, the champions, and I was fighting 1 time a year because I was on a busy wrestling schedule or a busy judo schedule. Then all of a sudden it came to my realization that I'm much better at mixed martial arts than I ever was at judo and I ever was at wrestling. I never made the number one starting position in either format for the world team, so I made my move to full-time in 2000 to be a full-time fighter, but my start was completely different. I was just trying to do it from a money standpoint. There is no pro wrestling. There is no pro judo. I had to make money. What's an easy way to make money doing something I'm already doing? Right. And that's how I got forced into it.
There's a connection between the TRT that we're going to chat about and just the physicality of men who are over 30 that have such intense physical exertion. Frank, can you share a little bit about yourself, about how your physicality has changed, and what you're doing to help bring that back to life, so to speak?
Well, the biggest thing, and Dr. Charles Irakaki is much better at the scientific standpoint than I am. I only can talk about it from my personal, what's happened for me and what's gone on, and a lot of the research that I've done. For most people that know me and know me well know that I was raised being learning disability. My handwriting is very poor. I was always considered to be the stupid kid in class, the short bus kid, if you will. I was always in special ed classes, that kind of thing. So I've always spent my life trying to be as educated as I could in anything that I'm doing. So I started doing research, and I found out that guys like Freddie Roach, who's got bad Parkinson's, Muhammad Ali, who's got bad Parkinson's as well. There are a lot of these guys, it's the puncher syndrome, it's the head trauma syndrome. And at first I was in complete denial because the former Pope, Pope John Paul II, had Parkinson's. He never got punched in the head. Richard Pryor had Parkinson's. He never got punched in the head. So it must not be from boxing. And I realized that I was completely mistaken. If you're looking at guys, whether it's football, hockey, basketball, judo, any contact sport, you have a lot of head trauma. You look at these guys later in life, after they retire from these sports, they start having early onset signs of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, they have bad arthritis, they have bad joint pain, they have all these problems. At 41 years old, I'm still very, very active in the gym. I train in the gym at least once a day, and I'm always in the middle of trying to train a guy that's 21, 22 years old on how to fight. Well, am I in great fighting shape right now? No. I can't go train and go, like, tomorrow I'll go fight, but I need to get these guys ready for fights, and I have to do rounds. I can't be that kind of coach that sits on the side.
Sure.
And I started realizing that the Celebrex, the Vioxx when it was still on the shelf, the ibuprofen I'm taking wasn't stopping my joint pain. I started noticing I was having problems remembering small details I had to call into quick memory while I was out training and while I was out, trying to explain to somebody in the middle of a live go what was going on. So I started doing some more research and finding out that I worked for the Atlanta Falcons for 2 off seasons, and it's the middle of the time when they're really worrying about concussion problems with former NFL players. I started realizing the average lifespan of an NFL player in the game, the average season game that he will play, are about 3.5 seasons, and then he's out. It's a professional football player, plays 3.5 seasons, and he's done. So everyone that sees the Pro Bowl, you see these guys, you might see them a couple of times, you don't see them again. It's more than likely because they're retired. By the time they get to the Pro Bowl, they're at the end of their career, and they're gone. Then the average lifespan is 55.5, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, with the Atlanta Falcons, I learned they're doing, if you're on offense or defense, you do about 40 plays, 45 plays a game, and you're in these little 7-mile-an-hour car crashes, 45 times each game. And then add in maybe 1 or 2 35-mile-an-hour car crashes where guys running through the hole, you all of a sudden have to close the hole down, you're trying to step in, like if a big major cracking play happens, you take 1 day off, Monday, you go ahead and you start again on Tuesday, and you do it again on Sunday. So imagine being in a huge car crash every Sunday from the time you're basically 6 until the time you're basically 24.
Wow.
And you realize that the head trauma and the body trauma, the things that go on with your body, was the same thing in boxing and wrestling and judo and any kind of mixed martial arts, the same problem. So I wanted to see how am I going to be able to survive longer. I have a 2-year-old son and a 4-year-old son. I need to be able to play with them. I have a 12-year-old daughter. I need to be able to play with them. I have a 20-year-old son that's very active and wants to be in martial arts as well. I have to be able to teach him and train him. I couldn't do it without being able to get out of bed every morning. So I started looking at alternative ways of being able to survive that weren't going to tax my body as much as these conventional drugs were doing. And I started looking at TRT because I needed to feel better so I could get out of bed and not be as mentally down on myself about, I can't move as fast, I can't move as well because this hurts or that hurts. And that's really how I started getting into TRT, is because I wanted to be better at being a father, better at being a boyfriend, better at being a coach. And I needed to find a way to do it that wasn't going to have me on, 3 pain pills in the morning, 2 pain pills at night to go to sleep, a bunch of anti-inflammatories, and a bunch of stuff in the middle of the day. I need to find a way to do that, and TRT is the choice that I took. I said that's the best way for me.
We're talking with Frank Trigg and thoroughly enjoying our conversation. And TRT, by the way, is testosterone replacement therapy. And, we've learned quite a bit, Frank, that as men, that the deterioration levels of testosterone happen fairly early in our lives and then gradually diminish as years go by. So by the point that you are over 30, over 40, even 50, that you're losing about 1 to 3% of testosterone each year after 30. And if you're training hard, like what you're describing, you can lose it at an even faster pace. And you described some of the symptoms that you were experiencing. Now with TRT, how long have you been involved with this therapy, and what have been the differences?
I actually came out to watch a Pro Elite card maybe a year and a half ago on Oahu. And while I was out there, Greg Honda is a real close friend of mine. Took a lot of great photos of me. Unfortunately, his biggest photo they took of me is me getting punched in the nose and my bodily fluid spraying everywhere because I got hit in the face.
Right.
And and he said, "Hey, look, there's this company in town. I want you to sit down and talk with Terry Harmon, who's the business partner of it, and kind of have him explain to you what's going on." And I was right when I started doing my research. And I sat down and talked to him, met with Dr. Charles Irakaki, and was thoroughly impressed at what they were telling me what was going on. And I said, look, let's go ahead and have a real quick blood sample done and see where my levels are at. I'm got a 6-pack abs. I'm maybe carrying 8%, 9%, maybe 10% body fat. Mm-hmm. I'm in great shape. Let's see, I'm going to be astronomical when they do the testing. You're allowed between 350 and 800 is your level of free testosterone in your system. Mm-hmm. That's about, that's where the government says you're fine. You're within reasonable levels. I was at 119.
Wow.
And I got checked. Looked good. I was in the mirror. I could have went out and done a fitness photo shoot. It would have been completely fine, but my levels were completely low, and I was feeling extremely poor this entire time, having problems with depression, having problems with, like I said earlier, memory and arthritis and stuff. Mm. And then I started talking to Terry and a little bit more on Dr. Charles, and I also realized that let's do one more test and see where it's at. They did it again. It was around 123, 124, so that was the neighborhood that it was in. I got to get it up at least to 400 or 500 to kind of get myself back to feeling right and feeling good. And that's really just from somebody seeing me down and talking to me and explaining to me, this is what's going on with your body. This is what's happening. And having a doctor look me straight in the eye, not that 5 minute that you get when you go see your normal doctor for your allergy medication, but really having a doctor sit down and explain to me, this is what's going to happen to your body, this is what's going on. These are the problems of what's going on with your lifestyle you led up until now. Let's go ahead and look at this thing. And I thought, hey, this is only for athletes at that point because, I've gone through this trauma or whatever. I started doing more research, and Dr. Charlie explained to me, no, this is what happens to everybody once they hit 30 years old. This is what happens to everybody once they start declining in their life and getting around 40 years old. Not just athletes. This is a general problem with every male that's over 30.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what, folks, you're going to be able to learn more about this because, Frank, I understand that Universal Men's Clinic is holding a seminar at the Island Club and Spa, and that's at 1177 Queen Street. Now, that's coming up this Friday at 6 p.m., and then July 30th at HKF Martial Arts Center. That's in Waipahu. That'll be at 7. And this is all open to the public, and especially men over 30 who are participating in sports, who are active, who have maybe concerns because of some of the things that you've outlined. This is definitely for them, yes?
Absolutely, 100%. And I just want to be very, very clear. When I was competing in wrestling, from the time I was 16 all the way through my MMA career, I was getting tested the entire time. So I never did anything illegal because I was scared of getting caught, which has happened to a lot of wrestlers and a lot of competitors I know overseas that we were competing against. We call it the World Championship or get busted. We call it getting popped at the Olympic competitions. I know guys that lost their gold medals because they were tested hot at the time. And so I never did anything at all. I made a personal moral choice to never be on anything at all while I was competing. And then after competition, I started looking into this. And those guys in mixed martial arts, if it's proven that you're below 350 and you need TRT to get your levels back up to testosterone replacement therapy, to get you back up to the levels the government states or the reasonable levels, then it's completely legal in mixed martial arts to do. Not in baseball, not in football, not in any other sport, only in mixed martial arts and boxing is there a loophole where this is completely legal, which is why I tell a lot of the guys, a lot of the Hawaiian Island fighters, that if you're over 30, you need to come to these seminars and pay attention and look and see what's going on. If you're a former athlete or a guy that's over 30 that trains, you need to come in and look at this. Just because guys like Dan Henderson and Chael Sonnen and a lot of other guys in mixed martial arts are on it, I'm not looking down on those guys. That was my moral decision to say that I was not going to do it while I was competing. But I applaud them for doing it because it is completely legal. They absolutely do it above board, and they know, and they get it registered by a doctor. They go in and they're sitting down with doctors like the Universal Men's Clinic, and they're getting tested and doing it properly. That for them is their way of doing it. They have no problem with it, and I applaud them for doing it that way. Just my personal belief is I was going to do it while I was competing, but I have no problem as long as it's legal and remains legal in mixed martial arts of somebody else doing it.
Understand. Well, listen, the fact that you're going to be there as well, Frank, I think is a great opportunity for folks to not only have a chance to get to meet you, someone who has made such an impact not only in this sport but continues to do so with the next generation of fighters, but your own personal account is going to be very much appreciated. Plus, there will be physicians from UMC that will be there that will walk those in attendance through as to what their situation may be and how they can be assisted and give options and all of that. So I think that's a big, big component for this. And, so guys, talking directly to you, don't hesitate. Yeah. If this is something that you can relate to and you can empathize with, then this is a move that you need to make. Best way do we need to sign up? Do we just show up or?
Just show up. Just show up. And,
okay.
And even if you're like, oh, my father's thinking about it, my son is thinking about it, like you need to be educated on it. You need to understand why this is going on and why men are looking at these things and understand it from your standpoint, even if you're not going to do it, but someone in your close family is going to do it. If you're a coach and your athletes are thinking about it, just show up and understand what's going on. I want you to understand, too, we're not talking at you the entire time. It's like, here's the information, here's what's happening, goodbye. We open up for question and answers at the end of it so you can actually talk to one of us. Mm-hmm. I answer the personal, this is what happened to me and my body while I've been on it, and the doctor's there to explain to you from a scientific background, this is exactly what goes on from a biological level to your body. So you get both the science and the personal response to what's going on with it. To try to make everybody more educational. That's what we're trying to do, is just lift everybody's knowledge about what's really going on.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and repeat all this after we're POW here, Frank. But, before we do go, if you don't mind, would love to hear two things. One, your most memorable bout and what made it memorable for you. And secondly, future of MMA. In the minds of many and a lot of fans, it's supplanting, traditional boxing as being the fan favorite for combative sport. Your most memorable encounter, and what's the future of MMA?
Well, unfortunately, the most memorable fight is a fight I lost, and that was in UFC 52 against Matt Hughes. My second chance of getting the belt from him. I almost won that bout and lost it. And the reason why it's the most memorable is because the media always asks me about it. It's still Dana White's top 3 fight of all time in all UFC fights. It's the number 3 fight of the top 100 UFC fights of all time. So it's always being thrown back in my face. If you look at the Matt Hughes DVD reel, the B-roll has me doing a huge interview about our battles back and forth with each other and our dislike, our actual personal dislike of each other and how that all came about and what goes on with that. And so that's why it's the most memorable, because that most people can't look back in their life and go, and they get to a fork in the road. They go, if I turn left, I meter around and I have to try to find something else to do. If I turn right, I become a millionaire. That fight was my millionaire fight. If I won that fight, I would be a millionaire. That fight would have turned me into a millionaire. I've been able to, pay off all my debts, pay off my bills, lived very comfortably, would have had like 2 or 3 title offenses, and retired from mixed martial arts a lot earlier than I did, and had a lot more money. So that's the one that always sticks in my head kind of, because I know that was the fight that got away from me. If I'd won that one, that would have changed my life forever. That's the reason why it's most memorable, too, is because it cost me a lot of money to lose it, as well as it cost me, the media always brings it up to my face.
Yeah.
Now, talking about what's going to happen with mixed martial arts in the future, there's 2 sides that are kind of happening right now. We're overtaking boxing because there's so many more stars. You're talking about your BJ Penns, your Chris Liebens, your Kendall Groves, you're talking about your John Jones, your Anderson Silvas, your Chris Weidman. They're all huge stars. There's so many different stars in mixed martial arts, and we're only talking about one promotion. We're not even talking about one FC. Right. We're not talking about Cage Warriors. We're not talking about all these other organizations throughout the world. We're just talking about UFC, and they have a huge amount of stars just in that one thing. The problem is that the UFC is basically the Super Bowl of mixed martial arts, the largest organization. It's what everyone strives to get to. It's what everyone wants to fight for that one group. But they're also, compared to the amount of money they bring in, they also pay the worst out of percentage of amount of money that they bring in compared to the percentage of amount of money that they pay out in their purses. So there's this big thing going on right now where the UFC took all the risks. They did all the trouble. They had all the drama. They fought all the commissions to make it legal. When Zuffa took it over, it was illegal in 48 states. Mixed martial arts was illegal in 48 states. Now New York is the only holdout. It's completely legal and has commissions in every single state in the United States except for New York. It's the only place that's illegal. They fought that and made that happen. Dana White dragged mixed martial arts by himself to the forefront. They took all the risk. They have all the problems, all the pressure. They're doing worldwide expansion. And so it's up to them to choose. As a private company, they choose how they're going to pay. So some reporters and some media are now complaining there should be a union to help the fighters get a better shake of what's going on overall, which will never happen in my personal opinion. I don't think a union will ever happen in mixed martial arts. It just won't go down. So there's one factor where if they don't hurry up and catch up, that boxing right now, Mayweather makes more in a year, fighting twice a year, than all the cards paid out. Now, what we see on paper, what the UFC pays on paper to all these fighters, Mayweather makes more than that by himself than all the cards combined together.
Jeez.
Compared to the UFC. But that's what's paid on paper. Let's understand. George St. Pierre came out and said he makes like $6 million a year. Fights twice a year. He makes like $3.5 million every time he fights, between total sponsorship, locker room bonuses, what the UFC pays him under the table, his pay-per-view numbers, and which we don't get a look at what his pay-per-view numbers are, and what he gets paid by the commission, which is public. So there's a lot more money being paid out, and we just don't know about it because it's under the table, and rightfully so. You want to keep some of that stuff hidden. I think mixed martial arts is going to blow up, but there is a need for a number 2, a strong number 2. Bellator is making for that pitch right now on Spike TV. I'm part of the Fight Master show. It's on Wednesday nights on Spike TV. I'm Randy Assistant's one of his assistant coaches, and I'm on that show. Bellator is making a real legitimate push to be a very, very strong number 2. Right now, in America, in the United States, just by default, they are number 2 because they're on Spike TV. It's going to take a real strong number 2 with a lot of money to really push the UFC and make these dollar amounts come up. Let's talk about Eddie Alvarez for a moment. He was the champ of Bellator. Mike Chandler beat him and became the champ of Bellator. Eddie Alvarez decided he wanted to leave and test the waters because that was his last fight when he lost to Mike Chandler and lost the belt. He went to open waters to the UFC. Now he's caught. He's not fighting for either organization because in a huge lawsuit. There's this thing called the matching period when you're out of your contract. Another group, the UFC, offers you some money. You then have to turn around and give that contract to Bellator because you're still in matching period and see if Bellator matched that money. Well, Bellator matched dollar for dollar, number for number, pay-per-view for pay-per-view with what the UFC had offered. The problem is Bellator has never had a UFC card before. The UFC Bellator has never had a pay-per-view card before, and the UFC has had a pay-per-view card every month for the last 17 years. So it's like, yeah, you can match it. I'm going to give you the exact same numbers on pay-per-view that the UFC would have given. They would give you the same thing. It's like, well, hold on a second. For the UFC, as a minimum, I probably would have made another $750,000 to $1 million extra in pay-per-view numbers. And for you guys, I might make $25,000, I might make $10,000. We have no idea. So that's the argument that's going on back and forth.
Right.
The UFC pushed the number up thinking that Bellator wouldn't match. Bellator matched. So you're kind of seeing with some of the stars. If the UFC really wants that star, they'll give an astronomical amount of money, and then Bellator will come back in and match it because now they're owned by Viacom. So they can match it. That's kind of how the union quality is going to be affected, is by the UFC wanting this person and Bellator matching that number to keep that person. The UFC wanting that person and Bellator giving that person a little bit more to get that person from the UFC. So you start seeing that stuff go back and forth, and that's what's really going to happen to the field of mixed martial arts as a whole. From a fan standpoint, it's much better because now we have two organizations to look at and pay attention to instead of just one. And one, for the majority of the time, is always on free TV or basic cable on Spike TV at Bellator, and the UFC for the majority of the time, like this weekend, is giving us an incredible card on Fox Sports,
yes.
On Fox with the DJ Demetrius Johnson versus John Moraga card. So we're getting an incredible free card this weekend on Fox from the UFC, but it's also we have a couple of pay-per-views every month as well. So it's coming along highly, and our sport is doubling, tripling overnight, like every week, every month. It's there's so many more people that follow mixed martial arts that didn't follow it the week before just because of how big it's becoming overnight. It's really getting huge.
And we're all going to be watching with everyone else just how it progresses and just how the popularity grows exponentially. And, to have you on board with us here today, Frank, spending some extra time, I can't thank you enough. And I'll remind everybody about the seminars where folks can come out and see you personally. How much longer are you in town for before you take off?
Well, I'm in Las Vegas right now. I leave at 5 in the morning tomorrow morning from Las Vegas. I land at 11 a.m. Tomorrow into Honolulu.
Okay.
And then I'm in Honolulu until the 1st, and then I'm going over to Maui for 3 days to go tour the island. I was in Maui one time for a day and a half, never left the resort, didn't see anything. I'm actually renting a car this time and to go around and run around Maui and actually see the entire island over there and the entire cities and really get a good feel for local flavor while I'm out there.
Awesome. Listen, man, we're blessed to have you here, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time. I hope we can do this again sometime, Frank.
I'd love to. Anytime you want to call, have any questions for me, definitely have someone get a hold of me. I'd definitely love to come back on with you again.
All right, man. Thanks so very much, Frank. We wish you aloha. Take care.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Bye now. Frank Trigg, who is legendary in the world of MMA, but also, as you can tell, just very passionate about the sport, very knowledgeable, and it is, without a doubt, I don't know if you, as an MMA fan, just understand how huge this has become over a relatively short amount of time. I know it's been over a decade plus of slogging. You might remember back in the day when there was an application made to host or to hold a UFC event here in Honolulu. This is years ago, and the legislature passing laws to outlaw, UFC and see where we are today with New York and Frank. I remember this in another side story about New York State. So to have Frank on with us, I loved it. I love that line of conversation. Universal Men's Clinic is holding seminars. The first one is going to be this Friday at the Island Club and Spa at 1177 Queen Street, and that's going to be at 6 p.m. Okay? 1177 Queen Street, 6 p.m. Then there'll be another and this will be on July 30th at HKF Martial Arts Center, 94-155 Leo'ole Street, and this is in Waipahu, and that will be at 7 p.m. Okay? And Frank is going to be at both locations, and he'll walk you through and the experiences that he's had. And for fellas who might be able to identify with what Frank described, not only talk with Frank, but also with UMC physicians, you'll be able to do that at both events. And there you have it.